The Angora goat of today is an easily managed animal and lends itself very well to both intensive and extensive farming systems. In an intensive operation, it's very rewarding for a person with small acreages and limited resources in terms of feed, but who has perhaps time and commitment and energy to find an animal which suits their small block holding.
My first experience with Angoras was through my mother purchasing a few Australasian animals in 1986. Immediately I could see the benefit in eating weeds.
In a commercial and large extensive farming operation, the Angora goat can be used especially well with assistance for grazing and pasture management. They will naturally graze from the top down and will eat seed heads and stalky roughage in preference to the lush green leaf. This is pretty standard farming practice in goat farming circles, but the goats are used prior to other classes of stock, perhaps with cattle or even sheep.
Yes, they're exceedingly good at eliminating weeds from pastures and promoting clover growth. And as such they improve your pasture for finishing other species of livestock, and as they don't share the same internal parasites as cattle are an exceedingly good complement with goats.
The worm issue, which is something which farmers usually query when discussing goats, is something that may be addressed in part by this rotational grazing and good farm management practices regarding worm drenching. These days include the use of fecal egg counting and the use of different drench types that reduce worm levels in pastures and thereby the worm burdens on goats and other classes of stock.
If you subject Angoras to very high challenges of worms when they're competing with sheep or very low covers and dirty pastures, you will require regular drenching.
Angoras grow fleece at a phenomenal rate of approximately an inch a month, 20 to 25 millimetres a month, which requires them to be shorn twice a year. Typically this is done mid-summer and again mid-winter, which gives a typical fibre length of around 120 millimetres to maybe 150 millimetres per shearing. This varies a little depending on the nutritional levels obviously, and the genetics of the goat and the age of the goat. The need for shelter at kidding time is one of the reasons why the midwinter shearing is carried out when it is, because the doe will naturally seek shelter at that time if she herself has been shorn just a few weeks previously.
If the weather was exceedingly bad, I would put them in the wool shed. Otherwise, small huts are perfectly adequate. As they are extremely intelligent animals, they do seek shelter very actively.
This greatly improves kidding percentages or survival rate at kidding time, and farmers would be normally recommended to provide some level of shelter for does at that time. The breeding of Angoras is similar to that of sheep, with an autumn mating and a spring kidding. The ratio of bucks to does at about 1 to 40 or 1 to 50. Birth difficulties are not common in Angora goats. They're generally speaking very good at having a good easy birth. Dystocia or birthing difficulty is not a common occurrence at all, and very few losses occur due to that problem. The birth weights of the kids range from 3 kilos upwards, with twins and triplets possibly being a little lighter, but that would be a typical weight, would be in excess of 3 kilos, which gives good survivability.
Yes, I actually believe that many New Zealand farms could include a mob of wethers, as they require very few musters per year, as there's very less stress on them, and they're still generating a very good income from their fibre while they're eliminating these weeds and improving pastures.
Goats require good, clean, fresh water, similar to other classes of stock, and also have a reasonably high mineral requirement, which may be assuaged by the use of mineral blocks or feeds, if people are feeding feeds that have got minerals added into them. Production levels seem to increase with good mineral supplementation.
We use salt blocks, especially for our breeding animals that require these trace elements prior to mating, through their pregnancy and during lactation. We find salt blocks also very useful for young animals to help them grow and maintain good health.
Domestic demand for goat meat in New Zealand is small but growing. Goat meat is the single most widely eaten red meat in the world today, with there being no religious taboos or other constrictions on its consumption in other countries. Demand for goat meat is actually predicted to grow rather than decline. The farming of Angora goats is in many respects not dissimilar to the farming of sheep. Similar facilities are required in terms of yards and sheds and shearing equipment. They're not a difficult animal to husband and may be used in existing facilities without any changes. The Angora goat does not have an issue with bearings as sheep do. It may happen on rare occasions, but it is not a common occurrence. In terms of foot care, the Angora goat of today is a superior animal to the Angora goat of the past, with selective breeding techniques having been employed by progressive farmers in New Zealand. More resistant goats have been developed, and with judicious use of foot baths and foot trimming on those rare occasions when it's required, then the management of goats' feet has become a far easier task than in the past.
We have genetically got to the stage where the issue now would be one of a few percent. This year, for argument's sake, I have probably seen 1 or 2 kids limping out of 500.
They're a good addition to most farming systems. They are economically viable, more so than in many other options, I'm sure, and they're not hard work. People who have them enjoy them and have success farming them. They have great potential. The world demand for mohair is going up. The world supply of mohair is going down. The reason for the supply drop is manifold and out of our control, but we can control the growth of our own industry and make it bigger and more productive than it has been. The opportunities for goats to expand in New Zealand are manifold, and there is no good reason why they shouldn't be considered as part of anybody's farming system. The Angora goat available in New Zealand today is a superior animal to that of the past. Good returns can be achieved from farming these exciting animals, and anybody wishing to look at adding another class of stock to their farming enterprise would be well advised to consider contacting a local breeder to source animals.
After farming Angoras for over 20 years, I find their intelligence and docility make them a pleasure to handle and work with. I plan to be farming them for many years to come.